Morning, everyone. How's everyone doing today? Good. Thanks for joining us again. Tired? Oh, don't worry, today's the last day. Welcome again to the 2019 AWS Public Sector Summit. My name is Bims. I'm one of your room hosts for today. And then I just have a few important information to share with you, some housekeeping information. To the left is your exit doors, to the two doors. And also, if you need to use the bathroom, when you go outside to the left is the bathroom. Also, please remember to silence all your devices. And this session here are being recorded, so it will be made available to you after the event. It's usually put on YouTube, so if you need to go back to it. With that, I'll be introducing Kelly, who is going to introduce the speaker of the stage. Thank you.
Good morning. Oh, come on, wake up. Good morning. Good morning. There we go. Good morning. So we are delighted today to present to you. We have two speakers for you today. So we have Subi Muniasamy. I blow up his name every time. Subi's the CTO for MD Think at Maryland Department of Human Services. And we're also going to be joined a little bit later by John Evans, who's the Chief Information Security Officer for the state of Maryland. These guys are going to walk you through the journey. I don't know if you've heard of the MD Think project, but they're going to walk you through the journey of the MD Think project to help you understand from conception to where we are today. And then, so we'll start with John Evans. John's getting mic'd up in the back. John will talk to you more about the vision of MD Think, how it came to be, the why, right? Who, what, why. And then Subi's going to come in and talk to you about exactly what was accomplished. So John will talk to you about what was the plan and the goal, and then Subi will talk to you about what actually happened, what the results that are seen, how it was done, services used, and so on. So with that, I think John is about to come up, and I will move to his slides. Or do you want to start? And I will, I guess, move to John's slides. Oops. Maybe. Yep. And with that, we've got John Evans. Let's welcome John to the stage.
Good morning, everybody.
Forward, backward.
All right, thank
Forward,
you.
backward, yep.
I literally just ran over from getting my car parked. Morning, Susan.
Good morning.
Kept backing up today, so I'm sure you all are aware of it. So the state of Maryland, we embarked on the cloud journey back in 2015. I was hired into Department of Human Services back June 1st of 2015. And when we first were deciding to go cloud, there was some major reasons for it within the state. The biggest reason was the accessibility and interoperability or sharing of data. We had highly siloed systems, and there was very little opportunity to share data between the systems or to get any sort of aggregate of data between all of the systems. So we were seeing opportunities for change, opportunities for improvements in our systems. We didn't have a real way of doing like total continuous care, continuity of care, 360-degree care for the constituents. There was a lot of opportunity if someone was coming out of one program to potentially fall through the cracks, or to not give them the best chance at success. So, as a fairly easy example, let's say somebody was coming out of a rehab center, and we needed to make sure that that there was housing waiting for them when they got out. Those were two separate agencies without any real automated way of talking to each other or identifying really even if they were kind of talking about the same person in any real fashion. So the silos, lack of visibility, talked about we didn't have any reporting across different programs either. So it's very easy to say that someone made it out of one type of eligibility program or treatment program, but what would their total continuity of care look like? Were they successful in the long run across all of the programs that the state had to offer? And what was the cost, perhaps, to the state across all those different programs? Those types of questions could never be answered previously. Also, we had a lot of dependence on legacy systems. When I first came into the state, I had heard about these things called green screens. I never really worked with them, but we still had those in place and for some of our systems around the state, some of our child welfare systems, some of our most critical systems. So we decided to embark on our system transformation journey. So we decided that by moving to the cloud, we could make those data layers much more flexible, and sort of out of the idea of the data sharing and data analytics, it was kind of born, well, let's make this a platform as a service rather than just a data layer. So we started moving in that direction, and that was where MD Think was born. So Maryland Total Human Services Information Network, Integrated Network. It's been called different things at different times. I'm going to go with whatever Subi chooses to call it now. So that's Integrated Network. There we go. Yeah, it does. I know. That's why that was last year. It was called that. So, but a lot of the point was to integrate the different data systems together. At the same time, we saw a lot of opportunity to be able to create efficiencies for the workers. In the old systems, because of the silos of data and the silos between the systems, we literally would have workers who would have to enter the same information into 6 different systems. They would be swivel chairing between different systems and having to enter the exact same information. So there was a lot of efficiencies to be gained through this data sharing, the interoperability between the systems. And then decided that we needed to modernize the applications also at the same time. If we were moving to the cloud, it didn't make sense to us. I'll get into this more a little bit later, but it didn't make sense to us from a strategic standpoint to do a lift and shift into the cloud. We decided we weren't going to be able to do things like auto scale. We weren't going to be able to make use of microservices. We weren't going to be able to utilize a lot of the cloud native offerings that AWS and other CSPs, but at the time we had made a decision that we were just moving into AWS, but we knew we wouldn't be able to leverage a lot of the capabilities that AWS offers us if we just did a lift and shift of the existing platforms. The systems weren't designed for it. So after we kind of decided what the need was and part of the strategy, we came up with our vision for the new system moving forward. We knew we needed to have a single version of truth. We needed to have MDM capabilities that would give us a golden record of the constituents as they move through the different agencies and the different systems that they would come in contact with. We knew we needed to have scalable and flexible data repositories. We needed to be able to run advanced queries and analytics on the data, and it would take a lot of data, because what we kind of decided, one of the tenets that we kind of followed at the beginning was, we're kind of new at this. We don't know what all data we're going to want to use for the analytics, so we're going to initially at least err on the side of too much is better and just kind of capture as much as we possibly could. Now, since then, we've started to implement some data minimization principles because there's risk associated with storing more data than you actually need. But at the beginning, we didn't know necessarily which questions to ask. We didn't know what we wanted out of all of our data. So we wanted to make sure that we had a large and scalable platform. Knew that we needed to have the system be highly secure. And one of the things that came up was, well, if you've got all this data in these repositories, does that mean that anybody with access to it can see all the data across the repositories? No, of course that's not the case, but we need to make sure that we had that built into the system using role-based access controls. So very much different depending on your role within a system or which system you have access to, that would determine which pieces of information you'd be able to see. So even about the same person, one worker may be able to see certain attributes about that person, and another worker would be able to see different attributes about that same person. And then, of course, we knew we needed to maintain data integrity. It doesn't help if we get all this data in, create this golden record, do all this great work, create this scalable data marketplace, and then we don't maintain the data, and the data goes out of date or gets corrupted. So those were kind of the 4 visions for the implementation of the MDThink platform. So I'll talk a little bit about kind of how we got there. So initially we submitted the APD is our advanced planning document. That is the document that we submit to the federal partners to receive matching funds back from them. So that depending on the program, the states can receive 90-10 matching funds, or 70-30, or 66-34, or 50-50. Just depends on the program. So typically what most states have done in the past, and what we had always done in the past too, is we would submit a separate APD, advanced planning document, for each of the federal partners, and then kind of hope those systems kind of coalesce at the end, more or less. And one of the things that we did different, though, for MDThink was we decided to do a joint approach, a joint APD. So we submitted one APD to all of our federal partners simultaneously, and that had 2 effects. One, it got us the funding right off the bat. There wasn't any, and what I mean by that was, it wasn't like we got part of the funding here from one of the federal partners, and then we had to wait for another, and didn't have to do any sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul type of stuff. We were able to have we knew what the scope of the funding was right off the bat, which was very helpful in helping us create roadmaps. The other thing that it did, which was almost sort of a unexpected consequence, was it forced the federal partners to come together and buy into our vision of MDThink, which included the data sharing. So a lot of other states we've heard come back to us and say, well, how have you gotten the federal partners to agree to the data sharing? Well, that was in our initial APD that they approved and they funded back in 2015. 2016 actually is when we got the initial funding, I think, or the initial approval. But all of that was in the APD. So they knew what they were signing up for, and they funded it. One of the other things that we decided we needed to do was to maximize 87 funding. So I just talked a little bit about how the different programs are cost allocated at different reimbursement percentages back to the state. There was I'll just very briefly talk about this, but it was important to us at the time because there was, as part of the Affordable Care Act, there was a waiver to all of that cost allocation methodology. And it basically said that if anything touched Medicaid, that it could be eligible for 90-10 funding, which means the feds would pay for 90% of it and the state would only have to pay for 10%. That was huge for us in getting the platform and the data layers stood up because we knew we were going to have Medicaid applications running on the platform. So we were able to get all of that work funded. It expired at the end of 2018, but we front-loaded all of that work to make sure that we were able to get the maximum benefits of the 90-10 funding. So now we had the federal partners on board and convinced and had a strategy for how to receive the funds and how to spend the funds in an optimized manner. But we needed to get the state partners still on board. There was a lot of pushback, and I hear this from a lot of other states that I talk to. There was a lot of pushback in terms of security of the cloud. That was one of the big ones. In fact, literally, we're talking about onboarding another agency. We're in the middle of onboarding another agency now, and literally, it couldn't have been more than a month ago. I had to have conversations with leadership from that agency explaining to them that just because their data is in AWS, it doesn't mean AWS has access to their data. They wanted to get agreements signed with all of the AWS employees who might have access to their data, everything else, and had to explain to them, with Amazon's key management system and hardware security modules, those types of cloud services that Amazon makes available for us, we can import our own keys in, and the AWS employees never have access to those keys. They never have access to any of our data. And in fact, if one of their employees were to try to access our HSM that houses the keys, I say, you better have a backup of the data because it's just going to wipe it. So it's gone at that point. So it's funny that we're still having to have these conversations, but this has been ongoing since we first kind of kicked off the cloud initiative within the state. And then one of the other big things that we had to do was explain it to our budgeting people. They were afraid that, if it's a commodity and someone can just turn the lights on, well, what if they just leave the lights on overnight? What if bills just start racking up and we can't account for it? So the first thing we had to explain to them was, you're going to like this better because you're not going to see those big peaks and valleys of the typical CapEx then OpEx model. It's going to be much more of a steady state. At least on the cloud, the infrastructure charges. Now, there's going to be some work, obviously, associated with upfront with redoing our application, some of that. But even on that, you're going to see more of a steady state because we're not going to continue to accrue technical debt. We're going to, continuously maintain the applications. And then we had to make sure that they understood that there was some level of oversight. We had some checks and balances, some different programs were available. There's even some available from Amazon that will alert you if you start going over certain cost limits, or if you start approaching certain limits, or if your utilization is going highly out of band with what it's used to seeing, some of those types of things. So had to sell them on all that also. So those were kind of, I would say, the two major hurdles that we had to overcome before we were allowed to move into the cloud. And then it was the management strategy. So this is the contract strategy, the management strategy. So one of the things that state of Maryland did very different also from other states is we decided that the state would be the systems integrator. So what that meant was we had to bring in very qualified people, and Subi was amazing at this. And if you have any questions about how he did it, I'll listen in with you also, because he did an amazing job of bringing in some really high-level people he stole them away from some of the largest companies in industry and brought them in to help run this initiative. But the model was, it was a couple of reasons. One, we didn't want to be, and this conversation literally just came up again on Monday. We didn't want to be able to hold our contractors liable if there was things that happened wrong. We wanted to be able to direct all the work, and we didn't want them artificially padding rates, building in liability, some of those types of things into the cost, because we might be able to come back and sue them later. So purposely built a model. We worked with 18F actually to create, I don't know if anyone's familiar with 18F, they're the GSA Agile contracting arm. I wrote a proposal. We were one of 5 states selected to win a 6-month stint with them where they actually came on site with us. They helped us develop the Agile contracting model that we have now, where we have, and again, other states said it couldn't be done, but we have 15 companies working together. There could be 5 different companies working on a single Scrum team to get the work done. Essentially, just enter user stories into our Agile work tracking tool. The different teams come and pick it up. Mark it as complete, but nobody is. And we certainly have companies that are helping us set strategy, and we have companies that are providing us with excellent resources. But really, at the end of the day, the strategy, the direction, the work products that are decided upon by the state personnel, which is a very different model from, I think, what I've heard of any other state doing. So kind of interesting, kind of different, but it's been working well for us. And then lift and shift versus rebuild. I'll touch on this one quickly. I already talked a little bit about it, some of the reasons why we decided we weren't going to do a lift and shift. We wanted to do an entire rebuild. So we actually, when we were looking at some of the cost models, we've talked to, there's some companies out there that will help you just take your existing environment and just move it into the cloud. But they don't scale, they don't auto provision, they don't do any of those types of things. I don't know of any of them that are able to really scale. There's one very popular one out there, and I know for that one, you have to buy reserved instances. You can't, it doesn't use spot or on-demand instances because their software just doesn't allow it to be able to auto-provision and scale dynamically. So what we found as we were looking through some of those options of moving some of the applications and workloads into the cloud is if we had to be max provisioned at all times, it could actually, for some workloads, cost us more than what we were paying on-prem. So I know Amazon doesn't like to hear me say that, but basically the point I'm making is the move to the cloud, you need to make sure it's done smart. If you just take your legacy applications, move them in, if you have to be max provisioned at all time because your application can't scale, if you can't make use of microservices and API calls that help the application and the workers be more efficient and share data, if you can't if your application isn't able to make use of some of the cloud service offerings that AWS offers, I would question you to rethink maybe why you're moving into the cloud at that time or question the strategy of how you're moving into the cloud. Also, a lot of people think when you move into the cloud, security is kind of taking care of it for you. I very much urge you to look at the shared responsibility model that Amazon publishes. It's very clear that they're responsible for these things, but you have all the responsibility for everything above that line, so to speak. And then last slide. Of course, I had to devote a slide to security strategy. I've moved out mostly. I still am, they keep pulling me back in, but I've moved out mostly of my role working with Subi and doing the cloud implementation at this time. I don't know if, I wasn't here for the intro, so, but I'm now the state CISO, so I had to, of course, devote a slide to security. So one of the things that we did, though, as we were looking through security strategies, we decided to pick a high watermark across all the regulatory compliance areas with which the state has to comply. So what that meant was we went through all the NIST controls, and we identified all the regulatory compliance areas, so IRS Pub 1075, SSA, CMS MARZ, CGIS, any of them, and we went through all of the NIST controls, and then we mapped out what the high watermark was required by any of those regulatory compliance areas across every single NIST control, and that's what we implemented in the system. We did that initially because we weren't sure of what type of data this system was going to be used for, and we wanted to be prepared, and we figured it's better to start high, and if someone needs a waiver to come down off the high watermark, we can talk to them about issuing that waiver. But a nice, again, partially unintended consequence of it is that now when agencies want to, or when there's conversations about agencies coming into the system and sharing data, agencies are having a tough time pushing back on security with saying, well, you don't understand my security, or we need to get these certifications or this approval from the feds, because that's all already done. So it really has helped us move much faster with the data sharing pieces. Like I said, large data sets equal stakeholder concerns. I talked about role-based access control earlier. One other thing to mention is there's been conversations about, well, with all this data in there, if someone gets access to our encryption keys, does that mean they get access to all of our data? Well, no, we have cell-based encryption. We have very granular level encryption, so you have to get access to 10,000 data keys before you'd actually have access to our data. And then we talked a little bit about the security of versus in the cloud, sort of where that line and what you're responsible for versus Amazon. And then the one last thing I'll mention, and then I'm going to turn it over to Subi, is we decided we were going to start with the platform as a service, which was the high watermark environment that I talked about. But for workloads or for agencies that don't need all of that regulatory compliance, if someone's posting, say, open data on a website that is, no PII, it's just data that's being posted about, water tables or something, there still needs to be some level of security because we don't want someone coming in and defacing the website or being able to manipulate the data. But it's not as sensitive as some of the other workloads that we work in, and there's certainly no regulatory compliance. So what we've actually done now is to also a infrastructure as a service offering, which is based on CIS baseline level 1 controls that doesn't go through the high water mark like everything else, but it does provide agencies some level of assurance, but it's much less expensive for the agencies to come in and get going and get running in that environment than in our sort of behemoth of a platform as a service, which is MD Think. And now I'd like to turn it over to Subi to talk a little bit about where we are with MD Think and maybe where we're going. Thank you.
Wonderful. Can you hear me? Perfect. Good morning, everyone. Okay, all right. I hope everybody understands what John Evans said so far. Yes. Okay, not a lot of people are nodding heads. If not, don't worry, I'm going to talk the same thing. All right? Okay. I want to be like much more interactive. I know like people are tired, including me. I am also tired. But let us just get some energy going. I will get energy from you. I hope you will get the same thing from me. In case if you like something, feel free to clap your hands. By clapping your hands, you are going to gain energy. By hearing it, I am going to gain energy. Okay, let's work it in that fashion. Thank you. Okay. Great, thank you. All right, I hope Kelly introduced me, but still I want to say once again so that people will remember my name. My name is Subramanian Muniyasamy, but you can call me as Subi. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Department of Human Services. I joined this department on March 1st of 2017. Now it's close to like 27 months and 12 days, I believe. So that's where I stand. My agenda is going to be slightly different. I'm just going to focus on some of the programmatic or the business function, exactly like who is our recipient, what we are planning to do, and how we are going to gain efficiency as well as cost savings by doing this work. Is anybody from here in the government side? Okay, very good, thank you. How many people are business and sales? Okay, I could see that. Mike, you can raise freely. Yes, thank you. Okay, wonderful. I think I have some information for everybody. That is the reason I was just trying to find out. Okay. Overall, what John talked is like a very high-level approach of like exactly what is the mission of having this kind of MD Think platform. The Think stands for Total Human Services Integrated Network. So it's not only information, kind of like we are integrating all the things together. So that is how we are doing that work. The Department of Human Services is a $2.6 billion agency. And underneath that, we have three main agencies sitting inside that. In some other state, every agency has a CIO, but here it's kind of like a big umbrella, and we are operating like a one integrated platform. That way, some of the decisions can be easily made to move the things forward. Sometimes it is good to have normalization, sometimes it is not. So here, we are taking the approach of normalization. This may work for another 10 years, then we have to think about denormalizing it. We will see at that time. The three main agencies here are this Social Service Administration. This is one of the very crucial and critical agency within this Department of Human Services, because the type of people we are dealing with is kind of like a very vulnerable kids and adults. This agency is one agency where we do not want a business with the constituents, because we do not want a lot of kids going to foster home, adoption. We want people to take care of it. So in case if there is a need, we want the system to support in a robust way to make sure all the need to support that kid or adult or anybody who is receiving benefit is done on time with the right benefit. So that is key. In case if it comes, it's kind of like emergency. If it is not, it is okay. The second one is the Family Investment Administration. This also helps the population where they cannot self-sustain themselves. It's unemployed or underemployed people who does not able to buy their own food, doesn't have enough cash, or medical assistance. So these are the three key things we provide in this, under this agency. The third one is the child support administration. At this point, everybody knows what is that. We collect the money from the non-custodial parent and give the money to the custodial parent. That is what we do. Okay. All right. If you're really seeing, this is the Department of Human Services. It is very important to have served these constituents in the right time with the right benefit. Okay. What is MDThink? This is the cloud-based technology platform we are building to integrate all these three programs together. This is our first phase. Once this is integrated tightly and proven it is working good and we are able to serve the citizens in the right fashion, this can be expanded to other agencies as well. So that is what it means. You see the number 1 and 2 in the top with the crank. The number 1 is the one integrated platform. The number 2 is the 2 million constituents we are serving by integrating this platform. The 2 million population, anybody knows what is the population of Maryland? Nobody, then I can say anything. It's a 6.2 million. It's kind of like we are serving like 1/3 of the population through Department of Human Services. Thank you. All right, as John alluded, like we are having like a different siloed systems. What you learned is a theory, now what you are learning is a kind of like a visualization. If you're really seeing, it looks like a spider web, but actually it is a spider web. See, like the same citizen or constituent has to go and apply benefit. I would say like a 70% of the same constituent is receiving benefit from multiple systems across the state. So that is the indication of that. Same constituent who has to go and write the first name, last name. Imagine if I have to write my first name and last name, how long it's going to take. Still I do it. In some of the hospitals or the clinics, wherever I go, there are 10 forms, I have to repeatedly writing it. Same thing here also. So the main goal of that is how to minimize the data collection redundancy. The more and more the redundancy in data collection, what is going to happen? We are going to have a problem in maintaining the data integrity. Somewhere I say Subramanian, somewhere I say Subramanian Muniyasamy, somewhere I say some different names. Imagine that is where we are losing the data integrity. Once you lost this, you are going to lose your identity as well. So that is the type of problem we are trying to address. Minimize the data collection, redundancy of data collection. By doing that, we will be able to maintain the good data integrity across the board. By doing the second one, you will be able to mitigate or minimize the fraud, waste, and abuse. This is one of the biggest initiated by the CMS and other agencies to see how we can reduce that. System glitch, people intentionally doing mistake, as well as because of the other issues, we cannot verify the data, that causes all this kind of trouble. As much as possible, we want to build an integrated system with a real-time interface, which will help mitigate these things. The right side, what you are seeing is the future state. We are not building a monolithic system, but still we are going to build an independent system, but all the things are kind of interconnected. Once you enter the data in one system, it is going to be available for the other system to enable the data, verify the data, and make use of the data. All right, by doing this, what are the type of key benefits people are going to issue? One integrated platform, we talked about it. That one integrated platform is based on the House Bill 66, which has been signed and passed several years ago. From that, so many people are trying to do that, but we became a pioneer in implementing it. That is that one integrated platform. By doing that, we will be able to save some significant cost. I'm not going to tell like how much, but we are going to save some significant cost. And more efficient delivery, faster service delivery. I joined on March 1st of 2017. I went and visited some of the offices, the local district office who do this kind of service to the constituents. In one of the office I went, I see like there are like 10 printers. Every printer is like running. Kada, 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 kada. I could see like it is like some kind of a factory is printing the papers. What is going on there? I was kind of trying to find out. All the applications are submitted through email. Some attorneys, some providers, some citizens, everybody is scanning their application at their home or somewhere and sending as an attachment through email to one inbox. Here somebody is opening, downloading, printing every application and stamping each one of the page of the application and then rescanning it, re-entering it. This is the process nicely done without any trouble. We are trying to do what my first goal is, okay, forget about all the cutting edge technology, everything. I want to shut down these printers. If I do that, if I do shutting down that printer, that I feel like a greatest achievement. I did. From that day, exactly 12 months, lot of other priorities, but I just like crushed through priorities and make that shutting down the printer is my top priority. Exactly we did. So that is the kind of thing. By doing that, what happened is a less than 1 or 2% of the population is using electronically submit the application. Now 70% of the application is electronic. 70%. Quicker enrollment. There are workers. For the long-term care is one of the big application, but population is small. The amount of budget spent on that is very high in the Medicaid because of the nature of the constituent we are serving and the age, whatever. The determination is done in like multiple different ways. So by implementing this very seamlessly, we are able to do the right determination. I'm not sure whether it's a good, bad, ugly, but it is consistent. For every individual, you will have the same outcome based on the input. So that way, like we have the streamlined eligibility determination and lot of papers, the notices, they are typing it manually. We automated all the notices. So that was the first thing we did. By doing all those things from the state perspective, it is going to be like a big operational efficiency as well as significant cost savings. So that is where we are implementing all those things. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. But whatever we talked is kind of like ideas, concept, ideology, everything is good. This kind of discussion has been going on for a very long time. And before I am coming on board, John and other people worked together to get the APD approved. By God's grace, we got some close to $200 million approved by the feds and the state, everything. But to deliver that, even God cannot help. We have to really work towards finding out the right people, work really hard to deliver. I'm a strong believer of that. As a result, what we did is we used this Agile methodology. Because of a lot of failures in the past, people were very skeptical about spending dollars or allocating dollars for this kind of project. This project is also a high-risk project. So what we did is, after I came on board on 2017 March, we quickly put together some kind of roadmap. Exactly what is the type of beast we are trying to handle. What we can do first versus second versus third. If you're really seeing here, this is like a 5-year program we put together on 2017. We started working towards that. In the first year, the rest of that from March through December or January of 2018, what we did is all the procurement, and also we tried to utilize what are the various vehicles available and maximize that to really make this happen. If you're really seeing the 2017 accomplishment, the RFP, APD, everybody knows what is the RFP cycle is, right? It's not only the agency created RFP, put on the street evaluation. In between, there are like multiple steps we need to go through. There's a steps within attorneys. Every attorney will have some. Anybody attorney here? That's good. I can talk. Because any time we talk to attorney, every attorney has a different meaning for that. And I can share a little bit more there later. Then in 2018, if you're really seeing, the first application we put there is the long-term care application. That is the story I was mentioning. And every 6 months, I am a strong believer, the fast and quicker delivery is the only way we can succeed in this time, at this time. The minute you are delaying or things are going far or the long delivery, what does it mean is, by the meantime, you will have like a couple of governors will get changed, 8 secretaries will change, 10 CTOs will get changed. So many changes, so many ideas. It is going to delay further and further and further. It is going to cost a lot of money. So that is why within one turn, whatever, just deliver it, whatever is possible, is a very high speed. So that is the approach I took, and we are going forward with that approach. And 2019, we are planning to deliver this year, the child welfare system for social service administration. Next year, the eligibility and enrollment system for the family investment administration. The following year, child support administration. If you're really seeing it, these are the major applications we are going to deliver every year. Every 6 months once, we are delivering something. Some pilot or some kind of field test, something we have to keep moving. Otherwise, people will feel tired and that momentum we will lose. From the executive management to the development side. Yes, please.
You wanted interactions, I wanted to ask.
Yeah, please.
How did you decide which ones to prioritize in terms of delivery? Was it more about it's easier to get the stakeholders on board for this particular program, or it's more cost effective? I'm just curious how you decided that what you want to do in 2019 versus 2020 versus 2021, which is still a few years out. That's the last one that you're getting.
What's your name? Nishila, okay, very good question. So sometimes, too much of democracy may be difficult. I understand exactly why you are asking the question, because every agency wants their system to be first, right? Yes, what we did is, I am in the same field since January 7th of 1997. So all these programs, I have some kind of a good knowledge, and based on that, we typically took some kind of a logical step. Everybody said the long-term care you cannot divide from other Medicaid applications. I said, why not? If there is a policy change, we'll go ahead and do the change. So we had some kind of discussion. There are two things what I identified while prioritizing this is, the people are not ready. There are people not onboarded. While I was driving the train first time, I'm the only driver sitting and driving with a complete empty garage. Nobody wants to sit. After 1 year, I can see there are people jumped onto the train. After 2 years, they want my driving seat. No, this is the reality. I'm not joking. Exactly this is what is happening. John will agree to that. Okay. Now, actually, this is what. So that way, there are some kind of things, wherever there is a major problems area, we put that as a top priority. Generally, what will happen is, the major problem area, because of the high risk, they want to put that as a last. But I took a completely different approach. So that way it becomes a little bit easy. For child support system, it's a pure modernization. Is it working good? Yes. What happened if you did not collect the money from the non-custodial parents, some few people, it is okay. That's not the end of the world. But if you have the same kind of problem for the child welfare system, it is a problem. The night you had to go and take the child from the house and then save it, right? So that is the type of, those kind of business impact and criticality helps us prioritize this. Did I answer your question? Great, thank you, please.
Let me give you a microphone since the session's being recorded.
Good morning, Subi. I'm Bob Leibowitz with Neo4j. I want to ask the flip side of that question. I really loved your story about shutting down the printers. I think it's important to be able to show some incremental value as you're, on your journey to success. What has been shut down as you've been bringing these new capabilities online? What systems have you been able to terminate, and what do you expect will be shut down this year?
Okay, I think he got too much on the shutdown thing. But it's a valid question. The only one thing is, the longer the period you are taking to implement any kind of modernization, what is the cost involved? You are going to pay to AWS, you are going to pay to all the people, you are going to pay to the new platform building, as well as the existing legacy system. You are spending like a dual, triple cost. That is one of the key to go faster. If nothing is shut down, at least we will sunset all the legacy by doing this. So that is our goal. some of the printers, but when come to the CJAMs, child welfare, right now what is happening here is people going to the field, they are writing the paper, and then come back to the office, entering all the information into all the contact notes, what is happened, all those things they are doing, and they are taking some videos, pictures, coming and uploading that into a different system. Now, this one is going to save a lot of things. We are providing the iPad. They can just scan and take a picture, load directly, type in whatever the information. So there is no missing information. And everything is kind of real time, and we are getting loaded into that. So these are the type of good benefit we are going to gain. Yes, please.
Hi. So it seems kind of to be a weird issue to bring up at a tech conference, but with the emphasis being on cloud migration and with electronic form management, what steps are being taken in order to ensure equity of access for people who may need to apply or access their SNAP information or something like that that may not have internet access?
Okay. Right now, I hope like a lot of internet access is there. But in the meantime, you can go and access in any of the public, like the library and some of the other assistants. There are a lot of non-profit organizations, churches, agencies still continue to provide all those things. And still, irrespective of all those things, we are not shutting down the notice, the paper notice. It goes out no matter what. So that way they know like, yes, I applied, yes, I'm eligible for this benefit, my EBT card I got this fund, and you can continue the shop like that. So it's kind of, I hope like 15 years from now, we will go completely paperless. So that is what I'm aiming for. So let us see how it is going. Okay, makes sense. This is our timeline. This is how we are going. The fast and furious is the key to really make this success. I know it's a huge risk we are taking, but somebody has to take a risk and move on. All right, the salespeople. This is going to be really helpful to that. So when I come on board, there's a big question like, what is this you are trying to build? How it is going to help? Other agencies going to come on board, what does that mean? Do I have to pay? What is that? That is why we came up with this kind of like an airport analogy. You think about the airport. In the top, the gray section, you can see there is a parking, food, baggage, restrooms. There is a lot of the security, the big perimeter. We have a wall there, but it's a dotted one, but really we built it one. So if you're really seeing it, all those things, airport analogy. Now look at that, how that airport analogy is really going to fit into the real world of what we are building. Everything we are building in the cloud, you can see there is a AWS there. Then there is a common platform with that gray color background. You see business rules. For every agency, there are some rules. This is a file-based asset. You can have your own rules, like a small compartment in your lockers. That locker belongs to you. The big one, while the bank is maintaining, that locker, whatever is belongs to you. You can just put anything there and take it out. So that is how you'll be able to access it. And then enterprise content management. It's kind of like every agency, every constituent can just submit the document, and it will be tied with the respective master data management unique ID. So that is how there is a master data management, there is a shared data repository. Right now, the way we are trying to build is anyone got into the system, we will have a complete 360-degree view of that citizen. That way, it is going to help a caseworker to identify who is who and make sure he is the right person, who is his spouse, where he works, what is his address. There are so many other variables to compare. Generally, so far the comparison is only very limited. First name, last name, date of birth, gender, and SSN. Now we have like a complete 360-degree view we built, which is really helping out the workers to really make a business in an effective way. So these are all some of the things. The orange color, you just see here all the flights. While other agencies or other applications going to onboard here, you are not going to lose your identity. People think, oh, I am going to lose it. And it does not matter. Southwest Airlines, anywhere in the country you go, Southwest Airlines, everybody knows. So similar to that, this is how. You know what is the road in the bottom? It's a runway. It's a CI/CD pipeline. So that is how we make use of this. And you can see the complete enterprise security. So this is how we build this model. Any of the salespeople going to use this, please make sure you are paying royalty to me. But please feel free to use it. See, while I have to go and stand in front of the legislators and the elected officials, we came up with this model of like educating or presenting. So this was very effective. All right, now comes to this kind of like what are the various things and the AWS activity happening. The security standard, John Evans already described it very well. We do have there are at least the 4 big standards we already implemented. In that fashion, a lot of agencies can come on board without any trouble. And due to some reason, if some agencies are yet to come on board, has some more additional stringent requirement, we will adopt it. As and when somebody we found, we are going to tweak it. Then a lot of components from the AWS, we are using it. If you're really seeing the data and security, these are like some kind of the key management components, firewall components, user access, monitoring and reporting, connectivity. These are kind of like a technical thing. It does not need to worry about it. Overall, initially, while we are thinking of going to the cloud, we want to be cloud agnostic. This is kind of like a lot of people may be still thinking, I want to go to AWS, Azure, Google, XYZ, whatever. But at the end of the day, if you are going to move from one apartment to another apartment, there is a huge work involved. From my perspective, whatever lessons learned and experience, if you want to really make use of the cloud function and features, capability available, make use of the native products or anything available with the conscious decision. Like sometimes that way you will be able to gain really a good features or capability, whatever is available. Otherwise, we will be struggling to put something else here and there, and at the end of the day, we will end up spending a lot of money. This cloud, as John mentioned, yes. Is it costly? Yes, of course, it will become costly if you don't use it right. This is kind of like you go and register for your gym. I went there, I said like individually it's like $50. The entire family can come for $75. Oh, really? Okay, then only $25 more. Let me get this entire family package. After some time, nobody will visit there, but all my credit card continue to pay to that gym. So it's like as simple as that. If you don't monitor, you will be ended up in paying, no matter what. It's nothing to do with the cloud. This is a common practicality across everything what you do in your life. So that is how I see this. All right. There are some quick statistics at this point. What we did in the past 24 months with respect to the AWS cloud. Okay, all right. Yes, you see that number 7, anybody knows what is that? No, CISO is not allowed. Okay, that is my birth month as well. And there are some 20 different accounts we provisioned, and 30 out of 90 products we are using from AWS. 65 application, 2,000 EC2 instances, and so far we onboarded like 30,000 external users with respect to the long-term care, but it is going to go skyrocketing this year because a lot of other applications we are planning to put in production within next 2 to 3 months. So you remember that number 2, we will be hitting that within a year or 2. So that is our goal. Okay, that ends my thing. Any questions, feel free to ask. We are here to answer.
Sorry, we have to end the session, but you can take their questions offline because we need to have like 10 minutes break, which we're kind of running behind on. The next session start at 10 o'clock. Please come back to this room for desktop as a service. And also, if you have not downloaded our app, please do so and share your feedback on this session. Thank you.
Wonderful.